Hello, juniors, and hello, Ashlyn. Woo! Got your Lysol wipes for you. I hope you're staying healthy and safe, everybody. Today, we're taking a look at the last lesson. The last lesson in Chapter 3, which you know what that means. We've got a test coming up soon. It's Lesson 5, Fragments and Run-ons. Hopefully you read pages 91 through 92 to kind of get some background, and hopefully you remember a lot of stuff from before on Fragments and Run-on. Here is some stuff we do need to remember. That, first of all, a clause always has a subject and a verb. You know that. A dependent clause, also known as a subordinate clause, is considered a fragment because it can't stand alone as a complete sentence. It's just a piece of a sentence. You've got to have a main clause with it. Since it's just a piece, it can't stand alone, a clause, a dependent clause, is a clause fragment. Conversely, a phrase does not have a subject and a verb. Only a clause does. Therefore, a phrase could never stand alone as a sentence. It's a phrase fragment. So a prepositional phrase, infinitive phrase, gerund phrase, participial phrase, all of those phrases are phrase fragments. Finally, a run-on is a sentence that is not punctuated correctly. If you have two or more independent clauses, you must use your comma with your fanboys, or a semicolon, a dash, or some other way to connect them. Remember, a comma is not enough. If you join two independent clauses with only a comma, that's a comma splice. That takes us way back to the beginning of the year when we did punctuation with commas. Comma's not enough to join two independent clauses. Here's an example of a complete sentence that is correctly punctuated. I love grammar is an independent clause. You got your subject, I, you got your verb, love. It is complicated is an independent clause. You got your subject, it, you got your verb, is. Then you've got one more independent clause here, isn't it? It is your subject, is your verb. So that is three independent clauses. These first two are connected correctly. You've got your semicolon with your conjunctive adverb, however, and your comma. Those independent clauses then are correctly linked with correct punctuation. And then you have just a comma here to link on this independent clause, which according to this is not correct because a comma is not enough. But the exception to the rule kind of here is if you have a little extra question tagged onto the end of the sentence, then all you need is a comma. That's from your comma rules way back at the beginning of the year. So believe it or not, this is correctly punctuated. It is not a run-on. This is a complete sentence. So here we go. We're on page 93, and I already have my answers here because I tried this before. First one, number one, if certain personality types are best suited to certain careers. So we have one clause here. Here's the subject, here's the verb, one clause. So this sentence is either going to be a complete sentence or it's going to be a clause fragment. It's not going to be a phrase fragment. It can't be a run-on. There's only one clause. So when you look at this clause, you have to decide, can this stand alone? Is this an independent clause? If certain personality types are best suited to certain careers, we're missing something. This starts with if. It's a dependent clause. So what we have here is a clause fragment. Whoops. And that cannot stand alone. It's not a run-on. It's not a complete sentence. It's a clause fragment. Number two, and again, I'm going to get rid of that because I'm kind of cheating there. How can a person determine his or her personality type and then put that information to use? One subject, and it shares a compound verb, determine and put. That's one clause. So again, this is either a complete sentence or it's a clause fragment. It can't be a phrase fragment because we got a subject and a verb, and it's not a run-on because there's only one clause. Can this stand alone? It can. It's a question, but it can stand alone. It is a complete sentence. It would be an interrogative sentence. It's a question, but it's complete. It's not a fragment. It's not a run-on. Number three. Yeah, you already know the answer there. Knowing your personality type can guide your career planning in a general way. It cannot tell you exactly what career to choose. So we have one subject here with a verb. This is a weird long subject. This is a gerund phrase that's acting as the subject of your sentence. So knowing your personality type can guide. Then you've got a second clause here. It can tell. So we have two clauses. That means we either have a run-on Or we have a complete sentence. Can't be a phrase fragment because we have clauses. Can't be probably, well, it maybe could be a complete sentence if all our punctuation is right. Take a look here. Knowing your personality type can guide your career planning in a general way, comma, it cannot tell you exactly what career to choose. We only have a comma. And we have one independent clause here. We have one independent clause here. Since this is only a comma, this is a run-on. This comma should be a semicolon, or we should add a big old but right here before it, and then we would have a complete sentence. So this is not really a sentence. It is a, not a run-in, that is a run-on. Number 4. Yeah, you already got the answer. When you are choosing a career, subject, verb, it is a clause. It starts with when. That means it's a dependent clause. That's a dependent clause. So it's a clause fragment. It's not a complete sentence. It's not a run-on. There's only one clause, so it's a clause fragment. 5 is really weird and tricky. We've got a blue verb here, can help, and then a red subject here, which I've got this word that's a little bit different, so I'll explain in a minute here what that means. Learning who you are can help is your subject and verb, so that's one main clause right there. But sneaking inside this subject, we have a second clause. This is a dependent clause right here. Who you are is a dependent clause. So we've got a dependent clause, and then we've got an independent clause. That is a complex sentence, but we have to decide, can this stand alone? Like, is this dependent clause right? Do we need another comma here? What's going on? Learning who you are, however, can help you decide how to spend your working life. This is all punctuated correctly. That, however, is a nice non-essential connector there, but we need to have something to connect that to the verb. So it's correct the way it is. This one is a complete sentence. Not a clause fragment, not a run-on. Number 6, you can consult books on personality types and careers. That is one independent clause right there. We got a subject and a verb. Then we've got a comma. Then we've got another independent clause here. You can also take a personality test. So we've got 2 independent clauses right there. This is a phrase, so we don't really care about it at all. But the important thing to look at here is these 2 independent clauses are joined by just a comma, not a semicolon. We don't have a fanboys like and or but here. So this is the incorrect way to punctuate this sentence, these 2 clauses. This then, since it's 2 independent clauses, only connected by a comma with a comma splice there, that is a run-on. Number 7. In discussing test results with a test interpreter or a career guidance counselor, you might have noticed I don't have any red or blues. I don't have any subjects or verbs. That's because this is a prepositional phrase in discussing test results. This big whole thing is a second prepositional phrase. This is 2 prepositional phrases in a row. That is not a sentence. That is not a clause. Those 2 things together make a phrase fragment. 2 phrases, not a sentence. Number 8. Also, I added the you because it's not in your sentence, but that would be the subject for this imperative command here. You remember that your career choice must take, there's a second clause, your talents into account. If you can't play the piano well, there's a third clause. The career of concert pianist may suit, there's another clause, your personality but not your ability. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 clauses in this thing. So either this is a run-on or it's a complete sentence if it is punctuated correctly. So you remember that your career choice must take your talents into account. If you can't play the piano well, the career of the concert pianist may suit your personality but not your ability. That's a lot of stuff to connect with only 1 comma right here and 1 comma right here. This is a run-on. I hope you figured this out. This comma right here needs to be in a semicolon, or you might do something like a however or a although, if that would work, something like that. This is a lot of clauses to connect with just a comma. That's a comma splice. So this big old thing is a run-on. Almost done, number 9. Because according to experts, there are many different suitable careers and jobs within career fields. We got a subject here, we got a verb here. This is definitely a clause. So this is either a complete sentence or it's a clause fragment. Because according to experts, there are many different suitable careers and jobs within career fields. If it can stand alone, it's independent, or it's a complete sentence. I think you know that it can't stand alone. Because is a word that starts a dependent clause. You can't just start a sentence with because. It might sound like the answer to a question, like your mom says, "Why didn't you do the dishes?" And then you answer, "Because I was watching Netflix." So your answer is a dependent clause, but it's not a complete sentence. This is a clause fragment. Finally, we're at the end. Number 10. For every personality type. I hope you can tell right away. I don't have any blues or reds. There's no subject. There's no verb. It starts with for. This is a something. What is this? It's a prepositional phrase. So that means this thing is a phrase fragment. And that is how you do these. When you are ready, try the assignment on page 602, set 5. Always email me or contact me for help. Sorry, Schoology is not working. It's really been a pill, but maybe it'll be better sometime very soon. Good luck on those and have a great day.